All right, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. We got about a minute to go. Welcome, welcome, Remax. I'm going to bring in the Facebook Live audience and we will be in a good place. So let's get confirmation. Our panelists are excited to be here with all of you. And I believe we'll be live here in just a second. Grab your coffee, grab your breakfast, and we're going to have a great time this morning. Okay, we are live. We have confirmation. Be here with all of you. There's a little bit of a delay, so you always hear that in the background. Okay, 1 minute to go. Tell us where you're coming from and watching these panelists. I see the numbers growing. We took about a 3-week break from this Business Builder series, so we're excited to be back. Hope some of you got a chance to go away for spring break in a safe manner. I was in Florida myself, so where's everyone coming from? Arnella from downtown Toronto. Good morning.
Woo! Hey, Arnella.
Mississauga. Okay, come on, US. Canadians are in the house. We've got Mary Johnson from Wasaga Beach. Hi, Mary and Bruce. Maine. All right, here they come. Keep those numbers rolling. Looks like we've got some people on Facebook watching. Hello, Facebook. All right, look at all these happy, excited people this morning. There's Milwaukee in the house. Indiana, Joe Schroeder. Hey, Joe from Marion, Indiana. He's here. Make sure you ask Paul a lot of very difficult questions. All right. Well, good morning, everyone in Remax land. It is so great to be back. We took a couple of weeks off from this series, and hopefully all of you got to go on vacation or at least take a little bit of a breather, but I don't think that's the case because today's topic is an indicator of what's going on right now with all of you. So welcome to the Remax Business Builder series. My name is Michelle Hoyt. I am Manager of Education and Development for Remax INTEGRA. We are an independent region of Remax. We are Midwest, New England, Ontario, Atlantic, and Europe, but we officially welcome all of you from Remax from the company-owned regions, including one of our very special guest panelists today. So today's topic is all about spring market strategies. This is that time of year, and it seems like it's amplified times 100 this year on where everything is moving. You're firing on all cylinders. However, it's very easy to get off track with your systems and your tracking and your follow-up and the very important things that set you up for success in the slower times and in the fall and going into the winter. So this panel today is going to share with you some of their successful strategies on keeping it all together, on balancing and juggling, and they're going to give you some really great tips and insights. So I can't wait for you to meet them. Let's go ahead and kick this off. Again, spring market strategies. Welcome everyone from Remax land. I'm going to have our panelists introduce themselves to you and talk a little bit about themselves. We're going to start with Anita. So representing Canada, we have Anita. Please introduce yourself. Tell us all about you, your market, your history with Remax, and anything else you want us to know about you.
Good morning. My name is Anita van Rootselaar, and I am a Remax agent and have been since the very beginning of my career. I started in the beginning of 2008. I am in Guelph, Ontario, which is about an hour west of Toronto. And currently our market is super, super tight. Our city has about 135,000 people. And although I didn't check this morning, I did check yesterday, and there are only 129 active listings. So for those of you that are also feeling that tightness, that absolute craziness, the strong, strong demand, I'm living it, I'm breathing it, and I'm here to just kind of share what it is that I am doing. And thanks, Michelle, for inviting me. I'm super excited. And I'm also looking forward to hearing what Mike and Paul have to say.
Absolutely. And real quick, we were talking yesterday about the pricing in your market and how much properties have skyrocketed in appraisals. Can you share with everyone what your average price is in your market?
Yes. So in the last 5 years, Money Sense magazine has rated Guelph in their top 5 of 35 cities in which to buy real estate in Canada. Uh, Last year we were number 1, and the year before we were number 2, which means we have a lot of pressure from Toronto and just from anywhere in Ontario that people want to put their money. So 2 years ago, the average price would have been mid to high 500s, and now our average price is about 750. That's a lot of money in the last
Wow,
years. It's crazy.
that's amazing in itself. And what's the population of Guelph?
Just around 137,000.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Anita. And everyone, please say hello to Anita and thank her for sharing her generosity and time this morning. Let's meet Mike. Mike, please introduce yourself to your Remaxers and tell us all about you and your history with Remax and anything else.
Well, hey everyone, good morning. Thanks for joining, and thank you, Michelle. I'm excited to be here with Anita and Paul as well. My name is Mike Opyd. I'm a managing broker and owner of Remax Next in Chicago. Bought the franchise almost 4 years ago now. In July will be our 4th year. Actually bought it from Michelle, full disclosure. Actually, I'm pointing to her on my screen. That kind of looks weird for everyone else, I'm sure. But yeah, bought it. We now have close to 40 agents. We have 2 offices, and we're doing really well. We're really excited about our growth in a short period of time. I've been a realtor for going on now over 13 years, top producer in Chicago. So I've been around the block a little bit. Jumped in 08 when everyone else jumped out. So kind of feel like I'm one of the smart ones in that regard. And similar to Anita's, not as extreme, Chicago is really seeing a lack of inventory like everyone else. Mostly in the surrounding suburbs and surrounding areas around Chicago, not so much the downtown area. But yeah, we're seeing prices jumping at 17%. Inventory still down compared to where it was last year. And with Chicago being such a transient city, it's really come down to just the buyer demand is through the roof right now. And we're seeing 30, 40 offers on a property, and people doing some pretty desperate stuff to actually get the winning bid. And we'll talk a little bit more about that today and some of the stuff that, I think is going to help buyers win. But yeah, it's a crazy market right now. They're all navigating, but definitely excited to be here.
Thanks, Mike. And there's a lot of newer agents watching this session right now. Could you share everybody really quick? You have the best story about getting started in real estate and what motivated you to jump into this business.
Yeah, it was. So I went into corporate America because that's kind of what I was taught growing up. Did it for a couple years, and I just couldn't stand working for someone else. So I just quit in the recession, and I was in Boston. I lived there for a couple years, moved back home. I had $2,000 to my name and an 03 Honda Civic, and that was outside of the little bit of clothes I had. That was pretty much my belongings. I got into real estate after I talked to my cousin who's a realtor, fell in love with it, got my license right away. And my fondest memory of that first year, because I didn't really do any business, was I was living at home at the time. My mom walked in about, I don't know, a couple months into me being a realtor, and she's like, "Hey, are you going to get a real job?" And I told her I have a job, and she says, "You do not have an effing job. You don't have a salary," and walked out. And ever since then, I've proved her wrong. So she's really happy with me now.
Well, I've met Mike's mom. She's very proud of you. So that's awesome. Thank you so much. So those of you that are brand new to the business, look where Mike is now and you'll learn more about him. So that's fantastic. You're getting congrats out there from everyone. So thanks. Everyone, please meet my very good friend, Paul from Indiana. Paul, please introduce yourself and tell them all about you and how you came to be at Remax.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. My name is Paul Kiger. I started in real estate in January 3rd of 2007. It was probably one of the worst decisions ever made back then because I made no money for a full year. But luckily, I had a lot of credit cards with a lot of room to pay for my gas. So that was great. But for the new agents out there, I think it's very similar. a similar market than it was when I started in '07. Just absolutely crazy, but complete reverse. I have a team of two amazing women that work with me. There's the power of three. They're business partners, and I love what I do. I sell in Louisville, Kentucky as well, so dual state, dual licensed. Dabbled a little bit in real estate in Los Angeles a few years ago. So some of the stories I hear from Canada, that's basically that market out there. My market, if it's 200,000 here, it's 4 million out there. Just add a zero. But the beautiful part about Southern Indiana and Louisville is that we don't hit these crazy roller coaster ride that other markets hit, which is nice. It's just pretty easy to live here and easy to work here. So on average, our price point's like 200 to 250. I sell anything from a $60,000 single wide trailer on permanent foundation to $1 million home in the same day. Our market's very hayride to black tie, from work boots to tuxedo. I love the diversity of it, because if I had to sell the same damn product, I would go insane. So that's a little bit about me. Data, I don't really track data. I just try to take it one day at a time.
I love it. Wait, what did you say again? Hayride to what? Because we got to
Black
get
tie.
We got to hayride to black tie. We got to get some one-liners out of this. That was good. Thank you so much to all of you. I'm so happy to have you here. All right, let's talk about what spring market really is, because I'm sure those that are new to the business get in, they're thinking, what's spring market? Or consumers see it in the media. So we'll start with you on this one, Paul. What is spring market by definition to you, and what do you think it means to consumers?
The spring market for me, it's having that conversation with a seller. Say we listed it in January or February, and it might be one of those very few inventories that won't necessarily sell. And they're like, we're waiting for the spring market. We're waiting for the spring market. We're going to hold tight. We're going to hold tight. To me, today, there's really no such thing as a spring market. It's just the market. People will buy a house in a snowstorm. They'll buy a house when it's raining. And we had a new listing, it hit, and on a Monday, it rained all day. Like it was one of those just miserable days, right? It had like 30 showings that day. That's spring market activity, but it was back in February, right? And it had 15 offers. So to me, reinventing yourself in the spring, it's what worked for you last quarter. And if it did, keep doing it and add more personal sticky touch to people, because I'm finding that, especially on repeat business, like we've actually sold a few homes that the people only owned it for a year, which is crazy. But in this market, you can do that and not lose your ass, right? So we were able to make that happen. And it's just because things are popping, don't think you're one and done. Because if the one and done agents, and you kind of find that more maybe on new construction because you have a faster inventory that you're moving through. Don't be one and done, because if you are, there's other people out there like me and those that have built those personal rapport and those relationships that's going to get that client in 3 to 5 years, because they're not going to remember you. So now is the time, no matter how busy you are, you're never too busy to build that rapport. So remember that when the checks are rolling in, because it will happen. And then you're going to end up where you had 11 closings in 1 month and you have nothing in February. And I speak the truth because that happened to me. And it was a reality check. So don't do what I did.
And what do you think the consumers are responding to in the media as far as what spring market is? Or obviously right now things are just crazy no matter what.
I think they're watching a lot of HGTV, which is great, I guess, if they will listen. So, education is so important here. And I will show them a house that I'll be like, here's a perfect example. This house is ready to sell. It'll have multiple offers. Your house currently is not ready to sell. It will not have multiple offers. If your home is on the market for a week, it's like being on the market for a month. If it's on the market for 3 weeks, it's 3 months. And every week it's not sold, the gray cloud gets darker and darker and darker. So out of the gate, if you don't price it aggressively, you won't get probably over list price. If you try to go too high to test now's not the time to test the market. If you test the market, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. So price aggressively. So say that in this market, if I could list it at 259, but I listed it at 249, I'm probably going to sell it for 265. If I go 10,000 too high, good chance I won't. And if it's on the market for a week, it's lost the momentum, the newness, the new car smell, and it's going to go flat.
Understandable. Thank you. Mike, what does spring market mean by definition to you and to the consumer?
Chicago is like one of the biggest transient cities in the world. We have people coming and going constantly. So our spring market is really where, you know, agents kind of make or break their year, unfortunately. A lot of leases end around April. A lot of them begin around April. A lot of people are coming into the universities here with Northwestern University and our hospitals and that. So our spring market typically starts pretty much after the Super Bowl, you know, in February, and it will roll to about June. And then our summer market, I guess you could say, kind of will take over for a couple months before it slows down in August, before our fall push. So really, when we see people listing homes, a lot of them are going to wait till this time. The weather turns. We have terrible winters here, typically in Chicago, and a lot of people are not shopping during that time. They wait till the weather warms up. So it's usually our craziest time. It's our busiest time. Agents are going to do a bulk of their business at this point, overall, compared to the rest of their year. So from an agent standpoint, like, you know, if you have listings that aren't selling last year, you've got to pull them off the market, let the 90 days expire, which is what our MLS needs, so you can relist them as a new listing, show up all shiny, maybe get the new photography done in the meantime, kind of like revamp how you're going to list it, and then come back on in the spring and have a better opportunity to sell at that point because more people are actually out shopping. So from just a real estate standpoint, like this is the time to really be in the market. From a consumer standpoint, though, that also means the competition level is insane at this point. And so many buyers now that were waiting for the holidays to pass are out shopping. And unfortunately, with this year, we just don't have the supply to keep up with the demand, especially with COVID. So for consumers, they got to be prepared that they're going to battle, essentially, is what it is. And I'm telling my buyers that, I'm like, and I hate to put it in this terms, guys, but it's essentially a war. And we're battling against 20, 30 other people. And if you're not putting your best foot forward during this time, you're going to get beat. And there's no, hey, let's, you know, see if a seller will be willing to work with us. Let's try to go under. It's like, if you're not even listing, if you're not even making an offer at list price initially, there's no point. And if you're an FHA buyer or even VA, you got to find a different area, kind of looking at maybe a different price point, even a lower price point, to get something that needs to have work done. But they got to be prepared. And if a buyer is not prepared, they're going to run into just getting beat constantly. And a lot of times when that ends up happening, they end up renting because they just get so defeated by it. And our rental market is actually pretty healthy. So that's where a lot of people are going to have to kind of turn to. So it's not a great time to be a buyer right now. Let's just say that.
Thank you so much. I'm sure those of you that sell in downtown Toronto especially can relate to some of the things Mike is saying about Chicago, because they're very similar cities, and Boston and other areas. Anita, what does spring market mean to you and to your clients?
So I'm a firm believer that weather is a big part of the Ontario real estate market. When I am chatting with clients November, December, and potentially January, and they indicate spring, Michelle, I think they are thinking April, May. For them, spring is when they can kind of get rid of the last of the snow outside and you know, sweep and weed and rake grass and make the house look as great as possible. For me, spring is when we all of a sudden see an uptick in activity, whether it's a bunch of listings are coming out or my phone starts to ring more. I am more than half of my business is referrals from other agents. So when my phone starts to ring from other agents, I know that other cities, other locations are experiencing more activity. I often say if it's raining real estate in Toronto, then it is dripping or sprinkling real estate in the other cities around. I would love to think that we're in our spring market because it's the right weather. But in Guelph, a month ago, our listing level was pretty much identical. It was 124. I just checked, and I'm at 129 right now. So we haven't hit the full-on activity level. I shouldn't say that. We haven't hit the full-on listing activity level. My phone is ringing, and I am being referred buyers. And I would have to say right now, although my niche is Guelph, I'm doing a lot of business out and around Guelph in a lot of the little towns in the other cities close by. And that just spells to the affordability of it all. And I think Mike and Paul, when we were chatting earlier, you were talking about the fact that when you place offers for buyers, you're looking at 10 or 20 over the list price. I wish I could say those were the numbers that my clients are facing, but if we, and I just spoke to clients last night, there was a listing that came on at 579 and they knew right away. They're like, okay, is this going to sell over 7 or just under 7? And yeah, I directed them to the fact that probably was going to be a high 6 sale. And if they wanted to win, they should just pop over that 7 number, 701, 703. But I love a spring market. I love when the weather gets better. Everybody's mood changes. Everybody, when it's sunny and the birds are singing, everybody feels better. And there's just an air of positivity.
Yes, sounds good. And spring flowers. So that's great. I see some questions coming in. We'll get to those in just a moment. So thanks. Mike, we're going to start with you on this one. Now, speaking of spring market, let's rewind 1 year to 2020 and whatever we called spring market during last year. So what would you say, what was it like a year ago compared to today?
Yeah, it was interesting a year ago because obviously we kind of locked down in Chicago, so everything kind of just stopped. Even though we were starting our spring market, everything kind of just came to a halt, like pretty much the rest of the world. So what we ended up seeing is our kind of governing body here, our Chicago Association of Realtors, started coming out with different protocols and things, and we were still allowed to show properties. We just couldn't do open houses. That was one of our biggest things. Obviously, springtime is a massive time to do open houses, and one of the most important, just because of the amount of buyers that are out there and creating picking up those extra clients. So that was a huge kind of a hit for a lot of agents that really kind of rely on the open houses for their business. A lot of sellers were very hesitant to even let us in. So a lot of people pulled their properties off the market. The sellers that were allowing us in, we actually had to sign agreements to get in. Seemed like every brokerage kind of had their own agreement. We had ours. Did people really abide by them? Yes and no. I had a lot at my listings and people would sign them. Just to say, like, they don't have a fever, don't have that, face coverings, booties, gloves. I actually went in one listing to show a buyer and they actually taped out where we can walk. Like, that's how crazy it got, because they didn't want us touching anything. I don't know why they didn't just pull it off the market, but yeah, it was crazy. The inventory dropped, but the buyer pool even dropped farther during that time. So, I mean, it was, at that point, it was a lot of just keeping people, informed, trying to tell your clients, like, hey, we're going to get through this. We're going to, maybe just have to push things off, getting extensions on leases. So, I mean, it was navigating some pretty crazy times, but we got through it. We always figured out how to do that. You just got to be creative. And one of the best things is, when I was talking to my agents, and that is that we kind of strategize on how to make sure you're keeping those clients. You're not losing listings because of this. You're not losing buyers and renter clients because of this. So we had a lot of conversations regarding that, just to make sure everyone's staying in touch with their people, informing them, keeping them updated. So, it was definitely different, but I actually almost feel like it made us a lot stronger because we're able to kind of spend that time to go back to the roots of what made us successful, reaching out to our people, calling them, texting them, you know, maybe even setting up some new things that they weren't doing, or, you know, maybe like I'm a big proponent for newsletters every month. Michelle gets mine every month, and it's generated me more business than anything I've ever done. And it takes me 30 minutes a month to do, and it's free. A lot of agents started incorporating that. So it was kind of, I almost feel like it was a good thing in a sense. I mean, it sounds terrible saying it, but like agents were able to reset their business and kind of maybe get back to some of the stuff they should have been doing so that they can hit the ground running essentially this year. So it's, I don't know. I think in the long run, the agents that took advantage of it are going to do really well.
Thank you so much, Mike. Paul, let's rewind the tape to last year. Would you say spring market was slightly delayed because of the pandemic, or, you know, share your thoughts on that?
You know, I think just as humans, we were delayed. So, I mean, the whole world stopped, right? So I honestly, when I think back, I'm reminded on social media what it was like, you know, March of 2020. And, you know, we just kind of stopped, right? There was all the certain markets weren't allowing agents in, the essentials, and then agents, some agents wanted us to be able to like basically shut down because the competition, you know, there were certain people that would take risks, certain people that wouldn't. But I think, like, I just go back to what we were doing. So we kind of went out and like chalked the neighborhoods of our listings because we couldn't go talk to the people face to face, right? Everyone was like keeping their distance. So we did this whole Be Well campaign, and that just got us out in the community where we would literally go and, you know, right in their driveways and wave at them and, you know, leave them some supplies as well to go chalk the neighborhood. And that just kind of grew on social media. So for our market, what I feel that the agents were doing and what my team was doing was just building that community rapport, building that foundation. That took up our time. That took up a lot of our energy because we weren't out listing as much and we weren't pushing for listing inventory because we didn't know it was even out there. So we were like, well, what do we do to occupy our time? Well, we got to keep our brain going, right? So we really just went out and pushed that whole community stickiness. And that was really cool because things started to continue to sell. So by summertime, people were just ready. So I'll leave you with this on this topic, because I love how this has shifted our market across the board. And I think Mike mentioned, you know, you had to be ready to go to war, right? Go to battle. It is so much easier to screen your buyers now because of COVID, because of the restrictions that kind of took place. And now the norm is you're not bringing your in-laws, you're not bringing your uncle, you're not bringing your uncle's contractor at the first showing. Who's on the contract is allowed to come. So for us as agents, when we're out showing property or when we're the listing agent, you were able to control the showing activity and who the quality buyer, because you were able to weed out all the lookers. I love that. And, you know, having that conversation, you got to get pre-approved, you got to do all these things. It is so automatic now that you want to go see this house. Have you driven by it? You know, have you talked to your lender? All those simple little things. And by the way, your mom's not allowed to come, you know, or your grown kids. We deal with a lot of retirees, and when they bring their Gen X children to the table to go, like, it cut all that out, right? So the showings were so much smoother. So I loved that trend. And now that trend is really kind of continuing on. So that was different in 2020.
I'm sure that makes it much easier. I love it. Anita, how about you? Let's talk about, just quickly recap what from 2020 to now, spring market, no spring market. What are your thoughts?
I just want to continue Paul's thought about how it's kind of upped the agent's game. What I've been talking about for a long time with buyers is the kind of 3-click Amazon attitude toward buying a house. They'll look on, you know, they'll grab their phone. If the first 4 pictures look good, they'll text you, hey, I want to see this one. And then you have to have all the qualifying questions. And like Paul pointed out, this is time to say, so who did you get your pre-approval with? Have you driven by? Have you done a Google search? You told me you wanted an ensuite, but this one doesn't have it. Have your parameters changed? It's really qualified agents it's really made agents more professional in their attitude towards their buyers, but it has upped the buyer responsibility level for sure. If you're going to be purchasing, you are slowly being taught that there are lots of things you need to do on your end and not just text your agent, 5 houses, this is what I want to see. So that's what I see as one of the positives probably in the last year. As for me, myself, last year, it was, who knew that we were going to have lockdowns and so on. But the fall of 2019 and January and February of 2020, I had a lot of vacant listings in my pipeline. And so as the listings came onto the market and we were in a lot of the restrictive mode of showing properties that Mike was talking about, all of the gloves, the masks, the sanitizing, the signing off on all of the COVID restrictions for everyone, I found the market slowed. It took longer. What typically 7 days to sell a semi in my neighborhood took closer to 20. We didn't get over asking price, which we probably could have. I priced a little more aggressively, I'd say, and the 3 that I sold in our hardest lockdown moments, the sellers were very happy with. Our market in Ontario was definitely delayed because by the time we moved into a full reopening, it was like the gates let loose. The Canadian Real Estate Association says that in the month of July in 2020, record numbers of people moved in our country. I think the numbers were over 62,000 people just for that month, which means that agents everywhere were running. Yes, it was multiple offers. It was trying to, and maybe Mike and Paul can agree, you kind of have these systems and these protocols in place of how to go from A to Z in a perfect listing transaction or a perfect buying transaction. And some of that had to fly out the window because the volume of people coming and going and wanting to look, that just adjusted. So I think a lot of good was learned in our profession probably in the last year.
Thank you so much. And as we all know, there's so many of you here at RE/MAX that had your best year ever in the last year. So I mean, that's fantastic. So let's talk about the very number one thing that all of your peers want to know, and that's how to get more listings. So we'll start with you on this one, Mike. Mike, you are a broker owner, you are a managing broker, you are still listing, although you're kind of moving away from that and going more full-time leadership. But what are you and your agents doing right now that's working to get more listings?
Yeah, there's a handful of things that we've actually discussed with our agents. I think a lot of people they're drinking a lot of Kool-Aid. A lot of sellers are, and they're really kind of seeing prices go up. So I think there is also that effect of people are starting to think about more and more, should we sell? The thing is, we got to get in front of these people. So, some of the things that we've talked about, and we do have some cold callers in the office that are calling the FSBOs and the expireds. I think there's still a place for that, but one of our agents does letters to FSBOs and expires, and he gets a ton of business from that. He had hired someone to do it. And I think it's like he pays them per letter. So, because we get all the return mail here, so it's kind of interesting in the office. So that's a strategy that's worked really well. Really reconnecting with your database is always going to be at the core of our business at all times. I think asking the different questions, though, when you do connect with your core, because a lot of people you've probably sold to recently, they're not going to be ready to sell, but they know people who are moving for whatever reason. The work from home that a lot of people are doing now has really opened up, I think, an amazing window here for agents to really capture a lot of listings, because a lot of people don't need to live in that current location. And that's one thing we're definitely witnessing in Chicago, is they don't need to be near downtown anymore. They can move to the surrounding areas where they're still close enough to get to downtown when they want to, but they don't have to pay the downtown prices to live in a high rise when they can actually get more square footage elsewhere. So some of the things that we're talking about is when our agents are reconnecting with their clients, are they asking them, what's the scenario that they're currently in and their people that they know are currently in. And what we're finding is when they start asking, like, what's the family, just generally, like, how's your family, how's your friends reacting to this? Are they working from home? What they're finding is a lot of their clients are telling them that, yeah, like our friends are working from home and now they're thinking that they don't need to be in the city anymore. They can move to the suburbs. So, they're picking up listings that way just by asking general questions to their database. So you're kind of getting that like double whammy there. You're touching your database, which you should be doing on a regular basis anyways, and you're picking up leads just by asking basic questions of what the people they know are doing. And we all know that everyone knows, like, I don't know what it's like 1,000 people or something crazy like that. They know people that are going to be moving. They know people that are in the scenarios of not having to drive into the downtown or drive to work anymore or commute into work. So we're seeing some success with that, where they're just basic questions are helping them get these people off get more leads, that way. Plus, it's a warm lead, which I'm sure everyone will agree. You'd rather take a warm lead than a cold lead any day of the week. The work's done for us. They talk you up anyway. So that's a suggestion that we've found a lot of success with. The basic stuff too, obviously farming, prospecting areas, and doing it in such a way where you tweak the message. It's not so much, hey, here's what your home is worth. I think unfortunately, there's enough stuff out there nowadays. I hate them, but Zillow estimates are still being used by people to see what the value of their home is. But I think there's enough where if you tweak the message of the people you're reaching out to when you're doing the farming and that, and being like, have you considered buying somewhere else? Is enough to get people thinking about it a little bit more. So that's a strategy some of the agents have used too. So that works for our market for sure, but the calls have been probably the most successful part of that.
Hey, Mike, I have to ask, because I'm sure others are wondering. Now, first of all, in Canada, I know you have different rules when it comes to expireds and for sale by owners, but everyone's dying to know what's in that letter that your agent is sending that is so successful. Can you give us sort of the highlights of it? And
Okay.
who is he sending? Oh, I guess he's just sending it to for sale by owners and expires, or does he have things that work for his database too?
No, it's just strictly for sale by owners, and it's an expired. And what he'll do is he has someone that goes on and he looks every single day to see what's expired, and then he'll literally just send him an email or send him a mail, a physical mailer, and it's a really general thing, just saying like, have you thought about relisting? Have you interviewed other agents? Can I please interview for the opportunity to represent you? It's not so much saying like, oh, hey, your home is worth this. It's more or less just asking for the opportunity and can I help? I helped him write the letter, so it's been a while now. He's been doing it for like a year, but the main theme of it really was just offering to help. And that's something I preach constantly with people is just, when you make it personalized. So they would write it out to each person, kind of say like, hey, came across your property, saw you weren't able to sell it. Are you thinking about relisting? Have you thought about interviewing multiple agents, or are you going to go back? And he actually some open-ended questions to try to get responses. We talked about like, are you going to use a different agent? Have you thought about interviewing other agents? Why do you think it didn't sell? A lot of stuff that's probably straight out of the cold calling scripts that a lot of agents use. But a lot of people hate to be cold called. So it was kind of a nice, almost passive way to go about it. And it's definitely a numbers game. He sends like hundreds out. But he's a younger agent and he's a rock star. He's going to be a top producer. And I think he's already eclipsed his numbers from last year. Like he's miles ahead of where he was last year already. And we're not even through month 4 yet.
Wow.
So it definitely works if you put the right message out. But it's along those lines of just more or less, can I help? Can I interview for a chance to represent you?
Sure. And everyone pay attention to the fact that this is actual mail. This is something you can hold in your hand. Think about what your email inbox looks like. Everyone is so tired of email. anything sent or that they can hold will stand out. So that's great, Mike. Thanks for sharing. Paul, let's talk to you about what's your winning strategy for getting more listings today.
So I really like to stress to anyone that I talk to is live, work, play, invest. You've got to be living and working and playing and investing in your market. When I say invest, I mean shopping at the local boutiques, eating at all the local eateries, going to the farmers market, sponsoring farmers market bags. If that's such a be present in your community, because I've always joked to say, when I talk to people, I'm not the guy that's like, hey, you want to buy a house? My name's Paul. You want to buy a house? I'm a realtor. That is just not my thing. It never has been. So I love it when people start the conversation about real estate with me, because that means I must be doing something right, because I'm not coming across all ballooned out and realtor pins and hats and vests, which I'm not judging that. Rock on, do it. And I do it sometimes, but it's less intimidating when you're not so, hey, you want to buy a house? So the live, work, play, invest has been a really big thing for us. So building inventory, anyone that we've sold a house to, we have them on a home anniversary alert, and typically it's through social media. So when I see that it popped up, or the day when I listed their house 10 years ago, and hey, this goes live tomorrow, I'll send them a screenshot. I just did it today. I'll send them a screenshot of the day I listed it, not the day that it went pending or the day they sold it, but the day that I listed it, and say, remember this day, remember how anxious you were. And then it'll pop up again in 30 to 45 days when it's sold, and I'll send them a screenshot. Remember that journey, and that's just kind of a good way to stay connected to them, because there's also, that opens up the conversation as, well, what is my house worth now? Or what would that house be worth now? How is the move? Or, oh, by the way, we just added a family member. We need to get something bigger. How did you survive COVID? I see that you're doing good on social media. Is it all perception, or are you actually doing the deal? Like those fun conversations that we have with our clients. So that presence has been such a big thing on just our social media. And, we'll do things that are automatic, and newsletters and mass emails and all of that. But I'm finding that what works best for us, because there's so many different things that work, right? But what works best for us is just that raw footage, that raw information from your phone, that you do a quick video. Like if I'm showing a house in a neighborhood, I'll take a picture of the house and say, hey, remember when I sold this 10 years ago or whatnot? Because I'm always in my market, right? So if I drive by a house I've sold, or a buyer's house that, I've sold them a house, I immediately reach out to them, shoot them a message. And that keeps me top of mind. When I'm out in the community, and this also goes when recruiting agents, if they have a realtor, but they still want to talk to me and we're just chatting, just having a conversation, I'm like, hey, I know so-and-so is your number one agent, but I would love to have the opportunity to be your number two if anything ever changes. And being that number two option really takes away that high pressure. And, there's a good chance that that relationship with their primary agent from years ago will get less and less and less. And they're going to remember me being like, hey, let me be your number two. And there's a good chance they might reach out. And that works well too, I think, with recruiting. Is I know you're happy with your number one, but you should always have a backup plan. Let me be your backup plan. Swipe right.
I like it. There you go. Swipe right. Anita, thank you so much, Paul. Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing that's working to get those listings today.
So my sweet spot here in Guelph, aside from referrals from other agents, is first-time sellers purchasing their forever home. So I have helped them, or they already own their first home. So in order to get them to list their property, we need to go and find their next property. So a bit like what Paul had to say, I am watchful of their lives on social, and I'm connecting with them in that way, just to see what's going on. I've had quite a few clients who have just had babies, and I know the houses are getting smaller now, so it's It's a lot about staying in touch with them. That's the one thing that I think a lot of people have learned over the last year, is to show your caring attitude. And that's not just real estate agents, that's just people in general. The kindness theme has really grown. And I've incorporated that heavily into my business. The kindness, staying in touch through social media. I know that my email box is full of stuff and I don't want another email. But what I would really love is a text. And so that's what I've done with my clients, is this year is working towards having the text conversations with them, even if it's just a pointed question of, are you thinking about so much new equity in your home? Would you consider having a chat about investment properties or so on? So I'm just trying to stay in touch with them in a real kind of personal way. I'm thinking that email is losing that, and it is so easy just to ignore your emails and to accumulate 2,000 unopened emails. Full disclosure, by the way. The other thing that I've been doing is just kind of working on my presence, being available, but also I've been working on my Google reviews, been reaching back out to clients over the last 2 years, particularly sellers, to have them write me up a review in regards to selling the property, and currently working on my CMN campaign. Again, because I'm referred so much by other agents, I have to work on my local Guelph presence. Most of my business in the last 14 years has come from outside of my city. And so I'm working on what does it look like to have Anita and Guelph area living as a visible entity here in the city. So we've started a farm area, and I have been a heavy, thankfully not heavy, I've been blessed enough to be a top donator to the Children's Miracle Network, the London Hospital, which is about an hour further west of me. And last year I was the top, probably the last 2 years, I was the top Guelph donor for the Children's Miracle Network London Hospital. So this year, London Hospital awarded me some radio ads, and we've started to build a campaign around radio ads and digital ads. We put some videos together. So I'm just kind of working on who I am as a person, how I can be helpful to my clients, but then just generally being the giver or being the kind person, and building a presence slowly. I have a lot of champion agents out there who love me and refer me, and always push my name forward. So my job to get more listings is to build that presence here in Guelph, and then to stay in touch with my owners, current owners, because most of them are going to make a change. So it's just being valuable to them.
That sounds amazing. Thank you. And thanks for your contributions to CMN, and congratulations. That's awesome. All right, hang with us, everyone, because we're going to talk about two very important topics coming up next. We're going to talk about systems and how to stay on track. And then we're going to talk about multiple bidding wars. And so stay with us because we've got some great things to talk about. All right, so this next one, we'll start with you, Mike, on this. Let's talk because I know you and you're a very systematic oriented person. You have checklists for everything. I love it. And it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. That's just what works for you. But talk to everyone about how important it is to stay on track with CRM, with systems, with checklists during this busy time.
Yeah, this is the time where a lot of agents that I speak to, they start making excuses for not doing the stuff that has made them successful. And I was on a call with an agent he's a newer agent. He was focused on his social media, and we meet every single week to talk about how his week is gone. And he showed me, I had him build out basically a doc of what he's going to do for that week. He does it every single Sunday, and it lays out all of his posts for the whole week. And he's been doing this now, and this is where he's generating all his business. Well, when I met with him yesterday, Monday and Wednesday last week, he didn't do any social media, and he generates all of his business from social media. It's very impressive. And his excuse was, I was moving, and I basically yelled at him that you cannot take days off, especially when it's the thing that generates you the most business. So a lot of systems and that focus needs to go on to what is gonna work for you and the people you're reaching out to, knowing who your clients are, right? Like if you're a millennial, you're probably in that. Most of your clients are probably millennials. But if you're this new generation of buyers, the Gen Zs that are now hitting the markets, you're not dealing with baby boomers, because no baby boomer is going to use a 22-year-old kid to buy a house or sell a house. So you got to know who your market is. So that's one of the things that we talk about constantly. But the one of the things that I think a lot of people will make a mistake is that they will not have their business completely organized from the get-go. And then when the holidays come and when the winter market is here and it's slow, I literally post this constantly in our inter-office communication. It's just that this is the time to really organize yourself. How do you deal with your buyers? What are all the steps that go into working with a buyer? What are all the steps that go into working with a seller? What are the things you have to do when you wake up in the morning, when you get in the office, and when you go to bed? Those are the 3 routines that I speak constantly about, because I think they're the most important. And I mean, to the point where I even know, I picked this out last night, especially because I was doing it for Paul. But I always pick out my outfit the night before. So that's one less decision I got to make in the morning. It's little things like that. And so we talk a lot about those type of things, making sure you're constantly organized, and then sticking with it. When an agent tells me they're too busy, I hear that as I'm unorganized. So then we got to sit down and go, what are you doing that is causing you to be unorganized? Where are you wasting your time? And a lot of agents, what I see is that the email inbox gets littered with stuff. And you're like, well, you don't have to answer all this right now. You need to be strategic with how you respond to people. Don't respond to anyone before 9 if you're doing your prospecting at 8:30. It's little things like that. You've got to stay organized and stay on point, because when it does get crazy busy, if you don't have those in place already, you're just going to get really flustered, left behind in a sense, and you're not going to do the production you need to do. So, I'm happy to share with anyone that is interested, that's listening. I have tons of, I basically use Google Keep for everything, and Evernote. I don't know if you guys have ever used those, but I have my daily to-do list in Evernote, and it's the things I have to do before I answer any emails. That's why I was late getting on here, is I have to prospect, I have to follow up on showings, follow up with my buyers from the day before. I have a list of 7 or 8 things that have to be done before I ever respond to an email. And then on Google Keep, I have basically lists of what do I do when I get a listing, right? Whether it's not just putting it on the MLS and praying for showings. It's, maybe I have a positive feedback doc that I use, that I capture all the positive feedback, and I follow up with those agents every single week to check in with their buyers who showed interest. I mean, it's little things like that I have for every listing, for every buyer. And if you have those in place and you stick to them, there's no way you're going to get, flustered or left behind. And what I kind of use, and it's going to sound kind of bragging-ish, but when I talk to my agents, and they will constantly tell me I just can't deal with all this. And then I'm like, well, what's going on in your life? And most of them don't have anywhere near the schedule I have. So I have to throw my schedule at them. I'm raising 3-year-old twins, I'm running a brokerage, and I'm still selling more than you. What is the issue here? That you don't have the time, because I have probably less than you have, yet I'm structured and I can do it, So I could talk forever about this. I want to give everyone else a chance, but
No,
I'm happy to share any of the systems or anything else that I have in place with anyone that's interested.
my favorite quote from you on the last time we did this was, you said you had a system for changing diapers. So that's how organized Mike is.
Yeah, got it down to about 15 seconds.
That's awesome. All right, Anita, how about you? What are some of the key tips you want to give your peers on how to stay organized during this time?
I think I want to continue on what Mike had to say about the systems. For me this year, that's a really big thing, because I switched brokerages the beginning of February, and I have joined with RE/MAX Hallmark, and they are a paperless system. So I've gone from full on paper files, paper, everything. So the list that we have from A to Z, from prospecting a client to giving them their anniversary, 1-year anniversary gift, that is all going to be moved online. So I'm appreciative for Google Keep. Thanks, Mike. I'm going to be looking at that. Know what you're good at and know what you're not, is what I'm going to say. I'm not a high producing agent. I don't do more than 60 ends myself per year, but when I was getting to that point, I hired an assistant, and I had a full-time assistant for a couple of years. And in the last 2 years, the assistant I have she's going to be licensed in about 4 weeks. So we have this transition going on in my business here of bringing in a new assistant. She's going to move to being a licensed buyer's agent / assistant. And that just means we need to be organized. Plus, we're not all in the same bricks and mortar anymore, because we are working remotely from a RE/MAX Hallmark's office in Toronto. So systems are going to be the life of our business for the next little while. Know what you're good at, know what you're not, hire out or find people to support you in areas you're not that strong at. But understand that the steps of buying and selling can be repeated over and over. So as I fondly say to my assistant, let's write out the recipe card for that. Let's figure out the 10 ingredients to bake the cake to get it done.
I love it. Outsourcing is not a bad thing at all. It puts you back into the prospecting mode while they can take care of those $10 to $20 an hour tasks for sure. So Paul, please talk to us about, I see that you answered some questions. They're asking about CRMs that you're all using. Paul, what type of systems and checklists and things do you have in place, especially during this time?
I'm just glad one of my team members is on here, because she's probably laughing out loud about the systems thing. So I have 2 systems. It's called Sharon Gordon and Sarah Ring. And that Sharon's been with me for 6 years. Sarah's been with me for 8, and we are equal partners within our team, 50-50 across the board. So I'm out able to do things like this, being out more in the community. That's the system that I'm more like the handshaking, kissing babies and shaking hands or whatnot. So they have everything down to a T. We don't have any assistants. So everyone's licensed. They process their own stuff. And, you know, I'm not going to take up any time. My systems are hire people that are better than you and are going to be together for a long, long time. And I jokingly tell them it's the golden handcuff, right? You hear that in the luxury marketing sometimes, the golden handcuff, because I will always split everything 50-50 no matter what, with one or the other, depending on who's listing or who's selling. But I'm able to go out, grow my business. And the only reason why my business comes back to me is because of the way they service it. If a client calls me, the best thing is to be like, hey, Paul, I need to list our house, you know, that you sold us 5 years ago. Wait, should I call Sarah or should I call Sharon? I'm like, that is the best compliment ever. Because them calling me is like calling one of them. Them calling them is like calling me. And it just works so great. And that is truly the power of 3, that partnership, because it frees up, you know, 50% of that split commission that I split with my team frees up 80% of my time. So they get on me and they're like, go out and stir up more business. You know, you got all this free time, right? But that's just really important to me. And more than anything, the system is what's going on in your personal life. You know, you can have everything systematic at work, but you're going to crash if your life at home sucks. So, you know, focus on being healthy, because it's going to transfer over to your clients. You know, connect with people, spirit to spirit, connect with them in that conversation. Don't be, you know, I remember 6-7 years ago, I would be talking to a person on my BlackBerry, you know, that's back in the BlackBerry days. And I was never connected because I had 15 million things going on. And now it's like the quality time is what people want. You know, when you're in front of people, they want that one-on-one. And really the only way to be genuine is that You got to be good inside here, and systematically work on that first and foremost.
Love that. And Paul texted me from his Peloton this morning, so I can say he was definitely improving himself this morning. Paul, I want to start with you on this next one. We're going to end, and we'll probably go over a little bit, but let's talk about the multiple bidding wars that are going on in every market right now. And what are some winning strategies for buyers and sellers? Paul, you had some amazing things to say yesterday when the four of us met to kind of prepare for this. But please share with everyone what your ideas are around winning those bids and best practices.
Awesome. I'll start kind of on the end of it. This is such a great opportunity for us to build rapport with our business, right? With our industry leaders, with our fellow realtor. So just because I'm the seller in this one and I'm sitting up here on my high, pedestal, and you got all these buyers agents out here feeding, right? You got to treat them with respect, because they're going to remember you when you're that buyer's agent. So, if you have 20 offers on the table, which we have sometimes, there's a damn good chance that 2 to 3 of those are going to be almost identical. Do you want to lose that bid by being the agent that was an ass, at the previous transaction? You probably don't, because it happens. Because with 20 offers, you're going to have 3 identical offers almost. And that rapport that you have with your fellow professional is so important. You got to focus on that. You got to practice that. You got to make sure you send out that email thanking them for their offer. It was a very competitive offer and we respect their time, but unfortunately they went with another offer. That's not hard to do. No one is too busy to do that. And if you think you are, call Mike. He'll help you get through that. But that's just so important. And, the letters, everybody's asking about the letters, the fair housing and all of that. If buyer's agents submit letters, great, that's fine. But I don't present those letters until the seller responds to the offer, because I want to save my time and not sit there and cry with them, because I don't know if you've been there or not, but I have once or twice. When they start reading those letters, I'm tearing up. I don't want to get that emotionally attached to the transaction until they look at the offer. So don't present the letters. Personally, we don't present the letters until after they decide, and that's just fun for them. It's the icing on the cake. It's the feel good, and it's all love. And pick up the phone. If you're a buyer agent, you got to call the listing agent, knowing that there's multiple offers, and ask the questions. I can't tell you how many times I'll get offers in. There's like 5 offers. They never even called me or texted me, and I got these 10 other offers, and the agents have been calling me, because as a listing agent, I'm basically reverse offering every offer that comes in the table when that buyer's agent calls me. I'm telling them this is the type of possession that they need. If you write over list price, you better write in that they can bring money to the table. If you submit an escalation clause for 5, and I'm using our market, 5 to 10,000 over, if you don't say they can bring money to the table, say they write 10,000 over and they say, well, the seller will commit, or the buyer will commit to $5,000 bringing to the table if it doesn't appraise, which is reasonable, because an appraisal can come off 5 to 10,000, no problem. But if they don't put that in there, all that other junk is just doesn't win. It doesn't win. Pick up the phone. This is the best opportunity for us to build that rapport with other agents and ask those questions. And if the listing agent isn't very professional, just sit back and say, job security. There are so many examples of job security in this industry, and don't take it personal. Be the better person and just go for your client, ask those questions. And if you're this listing agent dealing with multiple offers, the more you communicate with the buyer's agents, the better deal you're going to get with your seller, because it's the seller's choice. That's all.
That's great. Awesome. Thank you. Anita, what's your approach to multiple bids on both buyer and seller side?
I'm going to continue the theme earlier of building up the professionalism, so that when you are listing a property, it is about including all the important things. Show us, because in the Ontario market, we have about 30 minutes to go through the property. If it's a hot one, we don't always get a second opportunity to go through. So listing agents, we need to be including the age of the roof, the everything about the furnace, the AC, anything that is going to affect the mortgage of the property or condition, like an inspection of the property. fully disclose what you know about the property. And like Paul said, give the preferred closing date. Make the package ready so that the buyer's agents, hopefully they communicate with you. But if they don't, what they are bringing to the table, there's going to be no minor changes. And when I'm the buyer's agent, that's what I'm doing. I'm looking for those, top 8 things about the house. And I'm trying to communicate that to my client before we actually go through. So, okay, yeah, this furnace looks like this. I'm not an inspector, but this is what's been disclosed to us. Multiple offers. I do encourage my clients to make themselves alive, because the selling agent and the sellers are going to look at reams of flat paper. So a letter is wonderful. I've done it for years, letters with a family photo, but this year I've moved to video. So when I send in my offer, I give them a video of what I know about my people, and I communicate with the agent, and my seller or my buyers do the same thing. A small little video about them, what they loved about the property. And I can appreciate that some agents don't show it until the end, but my buyers also need to feel that they are doing absolutely everything to be successful, and being represented is a big part for them. I do really miss in-person showings. Our brokerage does multiple offers by Zoom, by putting people all together or in separate rooms. I will be moving forward with education on that, and then trying it all by Zoom so that we can have something come alive. But
Wow, that's amazing. Now, does that include just the buyer's agent, or not the buyers themselves, right?
yeah, all the
Okay.
agents. So that if you have 12 offers, they have an opportunity to come in, represent their client by Zoom. If they
Gotcha.
don't, but yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. So some really good takeaways from there. So Mike, there's you cover quite a large area in the Chicagoland area, from suburbs to city and everything in between. What's your winning strategy for you and your agents on winning those bids?
Well, we just talked, so I guess I'll just talk about the buy side, because I think Anita and Paul have done a great job on the list side. So I 100% agree with Anita, honestly, about putting all the information on a listing. Michelle knows this. I have an email template, of course, I got a system, but I send that to Michelle, and I'm like, Michelle, I need you to fill all this information out for the listing. It's not just for the listing paperwork, that's a part of it, but it's also all the information on the property. How old's the furnace? How old's the roof? How, any work done to the building recently? If it's a condo, what is the owner occupancy? Any special assessments? I need all of that information before I ever hit the market, because that way, all of that is going to be in the agent remarks section. All of that's going to be told to the buyer before they ever step foot in the property. And then this way, they only focus on the property itself, and does that work for them? They're not worried about these major concerns that any buyer is going to naturally have. So I 100% agree with Anita on that. It's something everyone should do, and unfortunately, not enough agents actually do that. And we got to try to ask these questions later on. So eliminate that on the list side. That way, you're not getting those buyers that are going to be spooked out by anything. But on the buy side, there's a few things I do. So I do the letters, and I actually think Anita's idea of videos is spectacular. She said that yesterday when we met. Brilliant. I'm shooting myself for not thinking about that, because that's an incredible idea. But a couple other things we do is, like, when we make an offer now, we don't try to mess around with any different terms. We offer our best terms up front, even if there are not multiple offers, because we're trying to obviously avoid that situation. If it does happen, though, what that does is now these sellers know we're real buyers, because we put an incredible offer on the table right up front. We didn't try to lowball. We didn't try to, have some kind of crazy terms that they're not comfortable with, longer closing dates, or we deal with earnest money in Illinois. I know most of you guys do not, but, with earnest money, it's similar to escrow. We put a lot of it up front. That's definitely something that we do. When it does come to pricing, though, if we do get in a multiple offer situation, we are using escalation clauses. And that's just basically, we're going to offer X number of dollars over the highest offer received. But I always have my buyers put a cap on it. And I think this is what is just important for a lot of buyers and people to understand is if you're not putting a cap on it, then you're really kind of opening yourself up to an incredible price that someone's not comfortable paying. So I always tell my buyers, like, let's offer $2,000 over the highest offer received up to a number you are absolutely comfortable paying. If you don't get it, at least you know it went above a number you were comfortable at. Another thing that we're doing, and I'm seeing this quite often now, is people waiving appraisal contingencies, where they're going to go, okay, we'll offer, it's listed at 250, we'll offer 280, whatever under appraises at, we'll pay the difference out of pocket. That makes me nervous, but unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of appraisers who are doing drive-by appraisals now with COVID. They're not even going in and they're just signing off on whatever price they see. But it is a strategy to use if it is the proper buyer who has, the funds to do something like that. We're also being very flexible on closing dates, trying to find out, like Paul said, call that agent, find out what are the most important things for those sellers. Is it price? Is it a closing date? Is it more security from just whatever the buyer's terms are for financing? I always call the agent and find that information out. And then that's based on what we do with our offer. It is typically about price, but you need to find out those other terms. Another thing I do is I make an offer and I copy my lender on it every single time. And I tell my lender to respond after I make that best and final offer to show how strong of a buyer I have and they've pulled the credit. They've done the financing checks. They've looked at bank statements. They put them through the gauntlet, right? They put them through heck to get them pre-approved. They didn't just hand them a letter. So again, showing how strong of a buyer I have. So, kind of doing a lot of different things like that is just what you kind of have to do almost in any situation we run into. So those are a couple of tips I've been using.
That's great. There's some good questions around this topic. I saw Laurel, I hope I'm saying your name right, just asked a question. Before that though, early in the session, someone asked, are you concerned about those that are paying 100 grand over, 20 grand over asking price when they go to sell in 5 years? Are you concerned about what will happen if it's not a market like it is right now? So all three of you can answer that question and go.
Anita, you're seeing it really, really bad up there. What do you think?
I can't forecast anything. But what I do know is no matter what the economy is in 5 years, we all need a place to live. It's not an extra for most people that when they're purchasing, it's not an extra property. It's not a cottage. It's not a vacation place. It's where they have to live. Markets rise, markets fall. I bought my very first house, believe it or not, in the early 1990s. It was 21% interest. The market fell for the next 3 years. We just ignored the market because this is where we lived. We made our payments and we did what we needed to do. We still actually own it now as a rental, but it's your home. Don't forget that. It's where you're going to live.
Appreciate it. Mike, Paul, what are your thoughts?
So definitely yes, it could be an issue, but I'm finding that the buyer is spending their liquid cash up front to pay that difference because the banks, aren't necessarily appraising out. So in this market, if it's, 10 or 15,000 over list price, they're typically bringing 5 to 10,000 to the table. So they're dumping that cash in 2021. So in 2026, they should be fine because they just overpaid hypothetically today. And it's not like they're going to have they're paying the difference now. They're paying that premium now. So hopefully it'll level out in the 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, thank you. Mike?
Yeah, I guess the only thing I'm a little bit nervous on is just the appraisers not doing their job. I said that earlier. But I agree with Anita and Paul that people are going to be buying places forever. People have to move. I do expect that maybe it would slow down a little bit and not accelerate as it is now. But if you look historically, pretty much across the United States and Canada, and I'm sure other places in the world, like our prices don't go down historically. They might take a dip here and there. We'll go through recessions typically every 7 years, but they're always going to continue to go up. Inflation goes up, prices on everything go up. So, I don't expect that even in 5 years, like we probably won't even be talking about 2021 prices or anything that has to do with it right now. They're still going to be buying. It's going to be at a higher price point at that point. I'm just hopeful that it's not at this like hockey stick trajectory that's like this that we're dealing with. Of prices just going through the roof. You would expect that the inventory would at some point catch up to the demand and things would level out and slow down, which in 5 years, you would expect that to happen. So I'm not too concerned with it really.
Right. I think everyone is just wondering, could it be another short sale situation like we had during the recession? And those are great responses. So I appreciate that. So there is a specific question about escalation clauses. You may have seen that, Mike. It was directed at you, but I'd love to hear from all three of you on this. If you're using escalation clauses, what is the process for you to even know what the highest offer is? So we'll start with you on this one, Paul.
First, escalation clauses are junk unless you can bring money to the table. So that's my 2 cents. If you can't bring money to the table, don't submit an escalation clause. I don't know if it's different per market, but we always take whatever the highest offer is without the escalation. So say it's 200,000 with an escalation to 220, but then you gotta so whatever the highest offer is without the escalation is the bait. And that's the activator, right? That activates the escalation. And then it's like eBay. And then we always submit the highest activator offer to the winning offer, to the winning bid. But before we do that, I always call the listing agent before it expires. I'm sorry, the buyer's agent before it expires and says, hey, you're going to win at this escalation price. I need you to call your buyers and make sure they're okay with it. Because you got an hour before this all expires, because if they're not good with it, then we're going with this other offer. So if they're like, yeah, they'll do it. I always try to build enough time there. So then we'll counter, because you counter the one that you're going to accept, right? The escalation, you counter it to expire with an hour, because all those other 10 offers that I have don't expire for 3 more hours, and it protects your seller.
Wow, thank you. And then I see some comments. Again, we know that there's going to be different rules, and especially in compliance on both sides of the border. So Anita, if you could speak to the Canadian side of this when it comes to escalation clauses.
No escalation clauses. That's what we have. None.
Okay.
And a closed bidding system as well. So we never know what the losing offers are. We only ever know our own offer and the winning offer.
Okay. Wow. That makes it even more competitive, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Wow. I think that's why we do see not 10 or 20 over anymore. We just see big bunches because people need homes.
They do. And I'm loving your videos. I want to send me one of your videos. I'd love to see what you say in it and how you present your client's offer. I think that would be amazing. All right, let's see. Any other questions before we wrap up? Thanks for staying with us. I know we ran over a lot of questions about systems and schedules, Mike. So I will include Mike's contact information in the follow-up with the recording. Paul's system, as he said, is he's got his team. So maybe we should include their names. No, we won't do that to you, Paul. But they are awesome. All right, we're going to wrap this up now. So what I want the panel to share with everyone is, what was the single best tip or piece of advice that you got from anyone in the business, whether it was a coach, a mentor, a peer? I'd love to, or maybe there's just someone you follow, but share with us what that piece was. We'll start with you, Paul, on this one.
I take this from my sister, who's been in the business for 20+ years, and I'll never forget it. It's not closed until everyone shows up at the closing table breathing. So again, it's not a done deal until everyone shows up at the closing table breathing.
I love it. Thanks. And hi, Paula, if you're watching. Mike, how about you?
Yeah, one of my favorite, it's a piece of advice from a client I had. He's a billionaire. He's loaded. And I asked him one day when we were at a showing, just because I'm very intrigued by entrepreneurs and how they build their businesses, so I can use a lot of stuff that they use in mine. And we're sitting there waiting for a showing, and you got to imagine this guy has more money, knows what to do with. He's sitting in jeans, a hoodie, and a stocking cap, and raggedy shoes. You would never imagine this guy's a billionaire. But I asked him, like, what's one piece of advice you would give an entrepreneur? And he looked me dead in the eye. He goes, dress the part, always be on time, and effing grind. Those three little segments, is I say it every single day now when I wake up. It's like the best thing I've ever heard.
Absolutely. And you're a living testament to that. So that's great. Anita, how about you?
The best piece of advice, and I hear it in my head a couple of times every week, came from a manager in the very first year of my business. And basically he said, every day, do at least one thing to move your business forward. And often on a day where, or even a week where I haven't written an offer or listed a property or been heavily active in the market, I did the one thing that day to move my business forward. And just to go a little bit from coaching, I would say you don't get to hunt every day. Every day you should plant seeds. So we're farmers and hunters all on the same day. I think it's a Buffini thought process. So if you're not busy out hunting today, be planting seeds and farming.
Love it. Thank you so very much. It looks like you've inspired Ali Reza. He said everybody is encouraging him not to give up. So, and that's fantastic. So thanks everyone for watching. Thank you to our panelists, Anita, Paul, Mike, you guys were amazing. Keep them in mind for referrals, everyone, in their respective areas. And thanks for joining us on the Business Builder series. We'll be back on April 20th. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.